Hello everyone, it's JT at StayOnTheRise, where I work with entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses, or even large businesses, and help them move from an idea that they have for a product, whether it be a mobile app, a business app, a web app, from the idea stage all the way to fruition, and through a series of steps that position you to make sure that you can be the most effective, spend the least amount of money in most cases, and reach your goal of having this product available and making some money off of that. So today I wanted to touch on this in this free video that a question I guess asked a lot, which is basically, what is the cloud? Okay, I'm sure all of you have heard and are familiar with it, or heard the phrase. It's become a lot of marketing hype around it, but so I want to kind of demystify that and kind of bring it down to what practically its use is, and make some differentiations between the cloud and hosting, and so that in your own application that you can actually say whether I'm positioning as a cloud-based application or whether it's a hosted-based application, etc. So to begin with, a little bit of history. Way back when, well, 40 years or so, when personal computers are coming to being, and you actually use this currently in your home if you have multiple devices. But basically, for us engineers, we used to have these little network diagrams where basically you'd have a series of computers, possibly in a particular locale, and then we'd need to have those connected to each other so that they could share information and be on this network. In most particular, they would go back and be sharing some maybe on-premises server. So generally they were connected in some form, generally through internet or Ethernet, and those are all on-premise. Well, in some cases, we might have two different facilities. We might have facility A here, and we might have facility B, similarly have other computers, and they have maybe their own what's called a local network that they're connected to. But when the internet became prevalent, a lot of times you would be connecting your two different locations or two different locations at a business through the internet. And the way that was actually shown, so that all these were coming into this kind of plug-in type of thing. So the way that was actually shown on the network diagram was via a little symbol of a cloud. So basically, whenever you were connecting two disparate locations and you're connecting them through some sort of common protocol, generally the internet protocol, you would be connecting into the cloud. Okay, so that was kind of how it started out. And I don't know what marketing genius came up with this whole aspect of kind of exposing everybody and saying cloud as a way of kind of positioning this. But essentially, it's no more than where, rather than having kind of a local server doing work, whether it's saving files, whether it's hosting a website, those types of things, those things became connected through the cloud or through the internet from your business to another business, not your own, generally that had at a minimum some servers out here that were doing saving you files and everything else. So if you had multiple locations of your business, they would be coming up through the internet and connecting into these servers that were out in usually a data center or so on. So that's kind of how it started. You basically started to get these hosting providers that could provide you large amounts of disk space, lots of performance, and large servers in a facility that was off premises, and where they did all of the IT kind of work. They made sure that the internet connection was always up. They made sure that you had firewalls in place which protected you from attacks. They made sure that the servers were up to date with their most latest and greatest types of things. So that's the biggest differentiation, or that's one of the things that starts to differentiate this when we start talking about the cloud. And that is, there's a concept called hosting. And if any of you have gone out and are in business, have been building a website, even for your local type of thing, you're generally going through, you're getting a domain, and you'll see a lot of times when you're getting that domain, or your web address, if you will, that you're also being offered kind of this hosting platform as well. So one of the main things to remember is that hosting does not equal cloud. Okay? It's an aspect. There are a lot of things that are similar, but it's a little bit different. Primarily what hosting does is providing you file system service, server service to actually maintain your company's data, or either even allow people to get your company's data or your website from the public through the internet, through standard communication mechanisms with the internet. So when you have a website and you put it up in a hosting environment, they're supplying the server, they're supplying what would be called a web server, and file system storage and everything else. You design your web, you interact with their servers to build out your website, and then that website becomes publicly or can be published so that it's publicly available. You can also use hosting services for what are called virtual private networks. So if you want your data protected very well and only certain people can actually gain access to it generally within your company, then you're going to put that also into a hosting provider. And again, the main thing here is that hosting providers are providing servers. Okay, so you have some number of servers, servers. So they might be web, they might be file, file space, those types of things. So they're providing these servers to you. And for that, what you're essentially paying them for is not only the connectivity, but they have this data center. So they have lots and lots of servers that you can choose from. You can host them there, and they have the IT staff on premises. They have the people dealing with keeping the server systems up to date, having the right software, etc. So that saves you a lot of money than having to build that infrastructure in course. And nowadays, because there's a lot of competition and also just a lot of volume, you can get hosting, a website hosted by one of these hosting providers very inexpensively, for basically, dollars per month. Sometimes it's virtually almost, it can be free in certain situations depending on the provider and what kind of services they're providing. The main advantage or the main disadvantage, depending on how you look at it, when you're going with a hosted provider, is that you're in control of that server. Even if it's a virtualized server, in other words, it's not necessarily a physical machine, you don't know exactly, you haven't named the machine, it's not server A anymore. If you're doing a shared kind of environment, you still have control over that server or control over that website. It's up to you well, it's always up to you to create the content, but it's up to you to choose what type of database you might be using and make the connections to that, or what kind of web tool or web building tool you might use. So it's kind of up to you to do that. It's kind of up to you to maintain and grow the number of servers for that business. So the hosting provider is just taking care of the IT staff, making sure those servers are up online. It's in a protected building, a concrete bunker someplace where it's protected from hurricanes and power outages. They have backup generators, etc. So it's definitely a worthwhile service, definitely something that saves you a lot of money, especially when you're starting up, from having to do this on your own. And virtually no one does that anymore, especially if they're just doing websites. The only time you really see that is sometimes in a particular a company is if they have very, very sensitive data where they actually have to build out this infrastructure. They have to have some sort of a secure thing. Although you can do that nowadays with the cloud services, that's kind of been a hurdle for a lot of companies. Or if you're doing very unique, specialized types of programming that are unique, and you need certain types of equipment, certain types of servers, certain types of softwares, that's very, very unique. Again, you might be doing that in a hosted environment, but then you're going to get a very dedicated server where you have control over everything about that server, even the operating system that might be loaded up on it. Okay? So that's the main thing, is that the best thing to take away for that is hosting generally equals servers. Okay? When we talk about the cloud now, cloud is really not about servers. Cloud equals services. That's the main differentiation. So when you're getting into a cloud environment, or when people are talking about the cloud, aside from if they're just leveraging the cloud because it sounds neat and fancy, when you're really talking about a cloud provider, they're providing services. You're buying a packaged bundle, or you're getting certain things in that environment. And there's three main types of services that you get through a cloud provider. The first and most common is called SaaS. The second is called IaaS. And the last is called PaaS. And I'm sure there'll be additional kind of acronyms, but they generally all follow this pattern. So the AAS stands for as a service. So the first one is software as a service. The second one is infrastructure as a service. And the last one is platform as a service. So, give you an example. So as software as a service being the most common, good examples would be, for instance, Evernote. You know, the note-taking application where you can keep notes and they're all synced out into the cloud, essentially. So you're even though you might be using a free version, it's basically a piece of software that you can use on your mobile, on your desktop, etc., that they're offering to you as a piece of software. You don't have to install it on your machine. You don't have to, well, you might install it on your phone if you download the app, but on your computer and things like that, you're not really installing software. They're selling the software as a service that's out in the cloud. You just make use of it. Another good example is something like Google Drive or Microsoft's OneDrive or Microsoft 365, their new version of these things, where you're buying the Office platform of the things to make your documents, to save your presentations, all the things that you might have been doing in an office environment. But again, you don't have to download the software. You don't have to install it on your PC. You sign up, you subscribe to that service. Depending on the vendor, you're going to pay a certain amount of money for that, and then you just start using it. And you can share that information across your company. You can privatize it for your own use. But again, it's a software package. So it's like a word processor, or it's a PowerPoint presentation or something like that. You're using the software, but it's provided as a service. So again, you don't really know where things are being stored. That's all being managed by the cloud provider. The second one is infrastructure as a service. This is less used, but generally when you're building an app, there's going to be different types of infrastructure as a service, types of providers that you may use. A good example is a company called Twilio. Twilio provides the ability to hook your application, whether your website and whatever your programmer can do, or even your app, to automate incoming and outgoing phone calls and texts. Okay? So again, they're providing this infrastructure, which is this connection of software to the phone system. And they're providing you an easy way of connecting with that and using that. Again, not knowing exactly where things are, not having to have the infrastructure, not having to have all the dial-up lines and other types of communication infrastructure that has to be there to deal with phones. You're just buying that as a service. And then they provide ways to connect to that service and make use of that service. Okay? The last one is a platform as a service. And this is this is a much larger concept. This is where you're basically asking for and buying and being able to buy lots of different services for your entire data center or for your entire infrastructure for your application. So a good example of this would be Google itself. They have an application platform where it supplies the database, ways to code, ways to distribute the application, ways to update the application, all back on their hosted services. I wouldn't say that their hosted services in their cloud environment, so that you can leverage what Google has built out. Similarly, there's Amazon Web Services. There's also Microsoft Azure. Generally, in this platform as a service category, you're dealing with companies that, by the very nature of their businesses, and Google and Amazon are two good examples, they had to already build this infrastructure. If you think about Google search, and just the infrastructure that had to be there, they have thousands upon tens of thousands of servers. They have lots and lots of people maintaining these servers. These servers are in geographically dispersed locations. They have automatic failover. They have all this infrastructure that's in place. They needed to have that just to support their search engine so it could be as fast as it is, or something even like Gmail. So they already had to build all this infrastructure. Similarly with Amazon in Amazon.com. They wanted to give people a very rich experience working with the Amazon.com brand and going to their site. You can always get on that site no matter what time, and you're going to get extremely good performance. They again had to build all this infrastructure just to support those products. Microsoft in a similar fashion. So what they did was they basically said, well, we have excess capacity, plus we already know how to do this, we already have this staff. Let's make this available to people to leverage off of all the things that we've learned in terms of maintaining 100% uptime, maintaining failover, maintaining elasticity, so that you can have peak on demand performance, moderate, good peak on demand performance, and very fast internet connections and high speed disks and all these different types of things. Well, let's sell that. Let's offer that as a platform for people to completely replace their data centers, to completely replace all this IT, not just the hardware, but also the software that goes underneath it, such as databases, such as content delivery networks, such as mobile platform distribution and support networks, virtual private networks, all these different types of things. So that's where this platform is kind of at the top level. Now, the good news is that in your business or for your application, you might you might start off in a hosted environment, or you might start off right in a cloud environment. It really depends on where you're positioning, how you're starting out, how much growth you want to get into, and what your technical staff or the technical staff that you're contracting with, what they might feel the most comfortable in, or what for your app is going to be the best solution. Now, that's one thing that I go over more when I'm consulting individually with people or through my course, as far as making the best selections for that. But again, there's lots and lots available out there, and the biggest aspects of both these, whether you're going from a cloud, a platform type of thing, is one, you might go with hosting, but provide a cloud platform for your customers. Okay, you might go with a platform as a service to provide that software as a service to a customer. So you might use hosting if you're just going to have a website or an e-commerce website. And you can basically kind of step into those things. Depending on what you select, what kind of infrastructure you want, what types of things you need to have for your particular website, for your particular app, will drive you towards what you select in here. But in all cases, it allows you to take these very small step functions where you can get in for a low amount of money and then build from there. The main difference for some basic things, for instance, one of my companies, we provide a software as a service. But when we started out, we just started with a hosting platform. Now, we started with Microsoft Azure, which is a full platform as a service. But all we really did was we used virtualized servers. So for all intents and purposes, it was a hosting platform. We could have gone with another hosting platform, Rackspace, Bluehost, even Weebly or Wix. But in our particular case, we had some very particular special needs that we had to have back on the servers initially, because we were porting that from an in-house server platform. So we wanted to do more of this hosted type of thing. We could have gone with a hosted platform. When you go for that, you're generally paying a little bit less because you don't have to have all the other infrastructure, and you have lots of people that's generally focused on websites and web types of apps. So you can get in very cost effectively. The same kind of performance, infrastructure, and size of servers, size of disks, and everything else that you might have in a hosted environment, if you were to buy them through a cloud service, they can sometimes cost a little bit more, because the biggest thing with the cloud service is they're trying to sell you a broader range of products. And there's a lot of products that are available to you as part of your subscription that you may not use right away. So again, I assist people in making those determinations. But again, know that hopefully this has helped you and kind of demystify the whole aspect of cloud services. And if you need to reach me, or if you're interested in learning more and learning about how I can help your business grow or help you move from idea to reality, just send me an email at jt@stayontherise.com, and I hope to speak to you soon. Have a great day.